Looks like we're live. Stream's holding up good. Mile high, hello everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. My name is Lance Sanderson. I'm your host as always, and joining me as usual is my good friend and colleague. He is your Denver Broncos insider and Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, Erick Trickel. Erick, what's going on, man? How are you doing today?
Doing all right, all things considered, with everything that's going on in the world. But yeah, I'm doing good. As I'm super excited. I was looking forward to this basically for the last couple weeks, ever since we decided that we were going to do this today. Been looking forward. I had a blast doing this mock this last time we did it. Super excited to be doing it again, and I'm glad everybody who's joining us. I'm glad you guys are joining us, and be ready to voice your opinions.
Yes, absolutely. This is where you guys really get to come in and show your strength and your voice in the group chat and everything that we've got going on here. You know, we are your scouting staff today. We are the guys that are going to kind of not necessarily pound the table and kind of direct and guide you, but we're going to give you a little bit of advice on the players that are potentially available. Now, before we get started on this, there was kind of some news that dropped earlier today with the Minnesota Vikings going to release Xavier Rhodes, the standout cornerback, who is widely considered one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. Now, Erick, with the Broncos already having brought in AJ Bouye via trade, it's not necessarily official until the start of the league year next week. Now, with Xavier Rhodes hitting the open market, what are the odds that the Broncos would potentially go after another veteran cornerback to bolster this secondary for Vic Fangio and bring Xavier Rhodes into the fold?
I think that it's likely they'll go get another veteran to bring in to help this cornerback group that they have, but I don't think it'd be Xavier Rhodes. I think the type of cornerback that he is just different than what Vic Fangio wants and prefers in his scheme. Plus, Xavier Rhodes, has just been not that good. Like, he was great in 2017, and I know I'm a big preacher of Vic Fangio has turned around corner careers before, but there's something when watching Xavier Rhodes that just doesn't look like he can just, I don't know, just turn it around. I don't see it that he can be able to stand up, be able to turn it around. So.
Yeah, I understand that. I think he's a little bit better as far as a man coverage cornerback instead of a zone coverage cornerback. And it's not necessarily the greatest scheme fit. I do like him as a tackler. I like him as an athlete. I think that he can actually play in this scheme a little bit better than maybe you're giving him credit for. But at the same time, his strengths are definitely in the man coverage side of things. Now, guys, before we get going again, just one more quick thing. Make sure you guys are following the show on Twitter at DVDD_pod. You guys are following all of us, me and Erick at Sanderson MHH. And for Erick at Erick Trickel. Notice the CK in his name. If you guys like the video, like the content that we're getting out there, make sure you like and share. Get it out so that we can get a lot more content out to you guys and get a lot more eyes on what we do. We are your Denver Broncos deep divers. This is what we do. We like to cover the Denver Broncos for you guys. Now, again, today, folks, we are doing a live mock draft using the Draft Network's mock draft machine. And to start us off here, let me get over to my screen here really fast. The Cincinnati Bengals on the clock, number 1 overall, go Joe Burrow. Chase Young, obviously, to the Redskins, number 2. Jeffrey Okudah, the cornerback from Ohio State, to the Lions. Isaiah Simmons, the do-it-all linebacker, safety prospect, to the New York Giants. Tua Tagovailoa, a popular pick, to the Miami Dolphins. Justin Herbert to the Los Angeles Chargers. Derek Brown to the Panthers. Tristan Wirfs, the versatile offensive lineman, to Arizona. CJ Henderson with the AJ Bouye trade is a very popular pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mekhi Becton, the athletic offensive tackle, to the Cleveland Browns. CeeDee Lamb, the top wide receiver prospect, according to Erick Trickel, to the New York Jets. Christian Fulton, the cornerback from LSU, to the Oakland Raiders. Javon Kinlaw, the interior defensive lineman, to the Indianapolis Colts. And Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle out of Alabama, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, on the board, we're looking at K'Lavon Chaisson, Henry Ruggs III, Jerry Jeudy, Andrew Thomas, and DeAndre Swift as the top 5 players available. Now, to get to kind of the comment section here just a little bit, I mean, this to me seems like a fairly obvious selection. I mean, with the Broncos needing wide receiver, this is probably the direction that we would pound the table for, especially with Ruggs and Jeudy both on the board. Now, Erick, to kind of differentiate the two and what the Broncos specifically need at the wide receiver position, which direction would you prefer the Broncos go at 15?
Well, there's two different ways that you can look at this. You can look at it which receiver is the better scheme fit for the Broncos, as in which receiver you can step in and just do exactly what you're looking for out of the Pat Shurmur offense. That receiver is Jerry Jeudy. He runs the routes. He gets open quickly. I mean, best route runner. He can still bring spacing to the offense. He can help complement Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Phillip Lindsay, and the other offensive weapons. He has enough speed to challenge deep, but it's that route running, which is what what Pat Shurmur's offense really thrives on, really. But if you want to sit there and you just want to boost the whole offense completely and just give so much more versatility to the offense, then Henry Ruggs is the guy to go with. He has the speed to basically he dictates coverages, and this is how he dictates coverages. Is because of that speed. Basically, Lance, it just was a computer sim. He didn't actually make the other picks. We're only picking for the Broncos.
So, sorry about that.
Anyways, with Henry Ruggs, he has that speed that dictates coverage. And with that, what that means is that the defenses have to provide a safety over the top for the cornerbacks, because if there is just a cornerback on him, he's just going to run by them. There are not many corners in the NFL that can hang with him with his speed. He demands double coverage because of that. Or if he develops his route running a little bit better, he can demand that triangle coverage that you see with Tyreek Hill that he has to demand, basically, which helps open up the Chiefs offense. So just to sum it all up, if you want the better scheme fit, then yeah, that's Jerry Jeudy. But if you want the guy who can just open up the offense so much more and still be a solid fit in the Pat Shurmur scheme, that guy's Henry Ruggs. And also worth noting, on my own personal big board, you guys can check that out. It's on Twitter. It's my pinned tweet. But on my own personal board, of the two receivers, Henry Ruggs is my 11th overall prospect, whereas Jerry Jeudy is my 14th overall prospect. So I do have Henry Ruggs higher as well.
Okay, now with that saying, just the overall speed that Ruggs does bring, and as you have constantly said, the way that he works within his routes. Now, he is one of those guys that really needs to work on speed variation, and as far as slowing down, speeding up, making sure that he's putting a little shimmy shake. A little bit sharper cuts wouldn't hurt him there, but he can use that speed to really manipulate coverages as well. Now, with Jerry Jeudy, he already knows how to do that, and he may not run 4.27, but he is a low 4.4 guy, and he proved that at the combine. There's plenty of speed to work with Jerry Jeudy here as well. Now, I think that with Ruggs, obviously the deep threat, the threat to take the ball to the house anytime that he touches the football is definitely a huge boost to his stock. But the work that Jerry Jeudy does before the catch and then also after the catch, the way that he can shift and shimmy and shake tackles, I think that would be a better fit just to me because of the way that Pat Shurmur really likes to have those yard after the catch kind of receivers. So I would kind of lean towards the Jerry Jeudy side of this, and then hopefully you can get a guy like a John Hightower maybe in the 3rd or 4th round that can be that deep burner kind of a guy. He may not bring the 4.27 kind of speed, but that is his kind of skill set to take it the top off the defense and go and get the football. Now, to kind of go into the comment section here, I mean, when we first got into this selection, it was Ruggs all day long. Ruggs. But then you've got on the other side. So this is kind of where we're at. Is it Ruggs or is it Jeudy? Which way do you want to go?
So one thing to add in there about Henry Ruggs is that he's not just speed. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are touting that that's what he is, but he isn't. One of my favorite traits about Henry Ruggs, and I preach this all along, and I will fully admit this, I am lower on Henry Ruggs than a lot of other people are. I know Benjamin Albright, highly renowned Broncos insider, is a lot higher than him. Our colleague Nick Kendall, he's higher on him than I am. But this guy he doesn't shy away from being physical, especially as a blocker. Now, I would like to see him be a little bit more physical during his routes, and some more physical corners can kind of disrupt his routes a little bit. But those are things that you can be taught on. But his upside is just so tremendous. And one thing that you were talking about with his speed variations through the routes and his cuts and everything is very spot on, because he's a guy who he runs. I mean, he may start his route out at 80% and then hit 100%. But when what really good route runners do is they'll get up to say 75%. Then right before their cut, they're dropping it to 65. They're making their cut, and they're doing that quick move. And when we had Luke Polglaze on just a couple weeks ago, he was talking about this. Is he's drooping that fake this way, and then he's cutting out this way. And as soon as he makes that cut the right way that he's going, and he gets out of that break, he needs to just jump it up to 100% speed. So you want to see him slow it down, get that break, and then burst out of it to get instant separation, which is something that can be very easily taught in the NFL, which is one reason why I really do lean Henry Ruggs over Jerry Jeudy. And I am a huge fan of Jerry Jeudy, but more I watch Henry Ruggs, the more I think about it and just basically how he dictates coverages and how that can open up everybody else on the offense. It's hard to not want that.
Well, I mean, that's a fair assessment. The Tyreek Hill speed, that game-changing speed, the ability to change the coverage, dictate coverage, and then open up a whole lot of other options, especially for Courtland Sutton going down the field and the way that he's running his routes and everything like that. I mean, we're running up against the clock here, guys. We've got about 30 seconds. So we're going to have to make this pick here soon. So make sure you guys get your voices heard. And I'm seeing a lot of Ruggs coming in as well. Now, there was one quick thing that we got to get to. Brian Greenfield coming in on the super chat. He says, it was very bewildering listening to PFF fixing the AFC West. They said Flacco was better than Drew Lock and also talked like Chubb was all but trash. Did you guys see that on YouTube? Brian, unfortunately, I have not. We're not really going to get a chance to break down into that today. But there was another question from Gerald Hendied on Facebook. Oh, never mind. That's not the right one. Excuse me. Let's see here. There it is. Ian Wegert, excuse me, on Facebook. What I worry about is if you look at the top 20 wide receiver 40 times of all time, only one of those wide receivers has ever had a 1,000-yard season. Now, not to necessarily say that, as Eric said, Henry Ruggs is not all just pure speed. So that's something you might need to kind of shy away from. But we got, 10 seconds, guys. We gotta make this pick. So is it Ruggs or is it Jerry Jeudy?
So real quick, I just want to talk about both those questions real quick. And Brian, thank you for the donation. We really appreciate that. I haven't seen that video. I haven't seen that video of it, but I think that PFF is a little premature to say that Bradley Chubb is trash. And there is no doubt you can just go back and watch the games and be proven that the Denver Broncos are better with Drew Lock than they are with Joe Flacco. As for the other question about the speed with Henry Ruggs, and yes, that is correct that faster guys don't often have that big old return right away. And one big comparison that I often see is John Ross. Well, John Ross, what people don't realize is that he was a 3-route guy. He ran his go route, he ran his post route, and he ran his corner route. And he was used on special teams. His hands were atrocious. And in the NFL, they're still atrocious. I think he had 14 drops in like the last 2 years or something like that. Some outrageous number. And he was dealing with drops a lot in college. It was one of his biggest knocks. He also hasn't stayed healthy, which was also a concern in college. Henry Ruggs, there were some concerns about his knee going into the combine, but they've all come back positive. And this is a guy who I believe had 3 drops in the last 2 years. So you're not having those same concerns. He is definitely very different than these other speedsters that have entered the NFL. So yes, you should be concerned about it, but it also comes down to you scout the individual. That's what it comes down to. Is you don't scout them by speed, you don't scout them by position, you don't scout them by school. You scout the individual player, because when it's all said and done, each player is their own individual player.
Yep. All right. Now, to get back to this, it looks like the comment section is blowing up. It is Ruggs all the way across the board here. So we're going to go ahead and select Henry Ruggs, the third wide receiver out of Alabama, and get this kind of going again just a little bit.
And excuse me. I just wanted to address one thing on there. Is yes, guys, I don't think that Henry Ruggs will be there come the actual draft. This is a simulation. We don't control the other picks in this. But I would not be surprised either if the Denver Broncos decide, hey, Henry Ruggs is there at 11. The New York Jets, they want to jump. They want to jump the Raiders. Like, that's the one team to really watch out for. Is they can get up to that height. They have 3 third-round picks, and based off of previous trades in the NFL, and this is actually an article that I have that on Mile High Huddle that you guys can go check out. It's the latest offseason projection. It has the details of this previous trade where the team moved up. I think it was from 15 to get to 10, offering just a first and third round pick. And I think that Denver, if it came down to it, and Ruggs was there at 11, I think that they can come around and do that same kind of deal to get up there to take Henry Ruggs.
Yep. That's fair. And here's actually a really good question from Chris Sanders on YouTube. Why not use the FanSpeak mock simulator? Now, and this is just a personal preference of mine. The way that that FanSpeak works is you have big board, and they do have a kind of good composition, a composite, mock draft board. This one is from very highly touted guys. The Draft Network, this is what they do. This draft board, I mean, they update it daily. Literally daily. They are upgrading their rankings. They're moving stuff around, and they just actually incorporated all of the new compensatory selections the other day. So this is a live kind of an update on more of a true composite board from the staff at the Draft Network. So that's why we kind of use this board. Now, to go back to the simulator, the Broncos are going to be on the clock here at number 46. To just kind of rewind this just a little bit to the top of the second round, Zach Bond to the Cincinnati Bengals. Jordan Love falls to the Indianapolis Colts. I'm sure Colts fans really like that. Terrell Lewis out of Alabama to the Detroit Lions, a good player for Matt Patricia to use. Lucas Niang, Jonathan Taylor, Jonah Jackson, Matt Hennessy, Denzel Mims, a guy I'm really high on, to the Cardinals at 40. Antoine Winfield Jr., the safety from Minnesota, to the Browns. Kenneth Murray falls out of the first round to the Jaguars. Robert Hunt to the Bears. KJ Hamler to the Colts. J.K. Dobbins, the running back out of Ohio State, goes to the Buccaneers. The Broncos sitting on the clock here. And right at the very top is T. Higgins, Jalen Reagor, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who out of the three, if you're going to get a Henry Ruggs III, Jalen Reagor is pretty well off your board at that particular point. Don't you think, Eric?
I actually don't agree with that, because Jalen Reagor is a lot more than just a speed deep threat. He's a guy that offers up a little bit more on the intermediate and shorter routes. So I think that, well, not ideal, I think that he is a decent complementary piece to what Henry Ruggs is bringing to the offense, as well as Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant. So in the end, I do think that I would take him off the board. And the biggest reason for that is, I think I've done it a couple times in my mocks, but I'm not the biggest fan of going back-to-back wide receivers with the first and second round pick. Just not my cup of tea. I would like to go look at somewhere else like that. Maybe the defensive line, maybe looking, depending on what offensive tackles fall, then you can be looking at that way, as Denver does want to try and come away with a developmental tackle. Maybe interior offensive line, depending on what centers are there, you can start looking at them. But primarily where I'm looking at here is on the defensive line, because this is a good spot, I think, in terms of value for the defensive linemen in this class, where you're not getting the top two talents, but in this situation, the top two talents weren't even there at 15. They both went in the top 14 picks. But there's other guys in this class. And if you want to pull up the defensive line real quick on the positions, I could go over a couple of them.
Let's see here. Interior defensive line prospects. Let's go up to the very top here for you. Let's see. Raekwon Davis from Alabama, Justin Madubuike from Texas A&M, Marlon Davidson, Devon Hamilton, Rashard Lawrence. I know you're high on Devon Hamilton, so there's just a few guys for you to take a look at.
With one name that I think is really standing out is Justin Madubuike, and the biggest reason for that is because he is a little bit raw and can use some technical development, but he has the athleticism to come in and contribute right away. And getting that kind of player to come in and work with Bill Kohler would be just tremendous. So at this point, that's the way I'm looking. I'm not so high on Raekwon Williams, or Raekwon Davis at this point. Just he doesn't have the upside as a pass rusher to me to be worth a second-round selection. I think for me, he's like a fourth-round grade, just because good run defender, don't get me wrong, but just kind of each year got worse as a pass rusher. So I'm not as high on him. And Devon Hamilton, I think that this is a little bit rich for him at this point as well. Now, I'm going to have you pull up corners real quick before we start getting to what the fans want, but I want to take this question real quick from David. He said, that said, won't the amount of teams jockeying to move up for Ruggs at 11 inflate the price too much? Yes and no, because here's the thing. When you're looking at trades, a lot of teams have a certain area that they don't want to go past when they're trading down. We see this quite a bit in every year where, say, a team, in this case, at 11, they have, at that point on the board, when the board call falls to them, they may have 4 players on their board that they really want. They're not going to go trading down 6-7 spots, because a good chance those 4 players are gone. About 4 picks is about where they would want to go down, because at least that way one of those guys will be on their board. So while it would increase the price, you also have to factor in how far down do they want to trade. Can't really speak too much on that, but that is something to be considered. So how about those cornerbacks?
Okay, so let's bring this up here. I've got it pulled up. Noah Benajin, the cornerback from Auburn, Trevon Diggs, AJ Terrell, Jalen Johnson, Cameron Dantzler, the top 5 available.
So one guy that I'd be looking at here is Trevon Diggs, because Trevon Diggs, for me, is a early second-round pick. I think he is my 40th overall prospect, my 35th overall prospect, something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is, even though I have it in front of me. Just bad day for math. Sorry about that, guys. But he's very high on my board, and at this point, he is tremendous value. And AJ Terrell is another one, but I'm looking at what the Broncos have with their scheme, what they could use in their scheme, and Trayvon Diggs reminds me has some similarities to is it Kyle Fuller is the Chicago Bears?
Yes, Kyle Fuller. Yep.
Kyle Fuller is who Trayvon Diggs reminds me of a little bit with his play style and his versatility, scheme, and just what he brings to the table. So basically, for me, and you guys are the voice here, you guys get to make your picks. I'm looking at Trayvon Diggs or Justin Madubuike at this point.
And that's a fair assessment. Now, I'm going back through the comment stream just a little bit as we're doing this, and I'm seeing a lot of this guy right here, Austin Jackson, at just for an offensive tackle, a developmental offensive tackle prospect here. What do you think of that? And excuse me, as I pull up the big board here, what is still currently available, you have Austin Jackson right here, number 47 overall. Right below or right above him is Trayvon Diggs. So, I mean.
Now, again, I have to look at my own big board after all the work that I've done on it, and I'm just looking at it real quick. And Austin Jackson is about my 44th overall prospect, whereas Trayvon Diggs is my 35th overall prospect. So it's coming down to that. And also with the Broncos, when I'm factoring them into the whole factor here, is if they take an offensive tackle early year one, which by early I mean round one or round two, they want it to be somebody who can play guard. I don't think Austin Jackson offers up that versatility. He's very raw, super athletic, going to require a lot of teaching. So he does fit that developmental tackle spot, but they want a guy that come in and play guard at least for this year and potentially go move out to tackle when Juwan James gets hurt. So Austin Jackson would be a solid pick, but I wouldn't take him over Justin Madubuike or my favorite guy here, Trayvon Diggs.
That's fair. And as John Silva just asked, you just answered a question perfectly. Now, Brian Greenfield coming back in on the super chat with another $5 donation. Brian, we appreciate you, man. I really do. I mean, it's awesome what you do for us, man. We do appreciate your support. Lamb, Judy, Ruggs, honestly would be happy to get I honestly would be happy to get one of the top 4 or 5 offensive linemen at 15. We kind of addressed this earlier with the Broncos set with Garrett Bowles and Juwan James at the tackle position, taking one at 15, unless it's Tristan Wirfs, is probably not a great idea. Wirfs at least offers that versatility that Eric was talking about, and a guy that could potentially play the right guard position and take over for Elijah Wilkinson there. Now, we're running up against the clock here, guys, so we're going to have to do this. It's Trayvon Diggs, Austin Jackson, or Justin Madubuike, and I think that a lot of it. I'm seeing
a lot of Trayvon Diggs in the.
I'm seeing a lot of Trayvon Diggs here, guys. So I think that's probably the direction we're going to go here. So Trayvon Diggs, back-to-back Alabama players, breaking the trend of John Elway here of not drafting Alabama players. Now
I didn't even consider that. Like, I didn't even think about that until you said that.
It's actually kind of mind blowing. It really just clicked in my head as soon as I hit make the pick. Now I got a chance to watch Trayvon Diggs, and something that really spoke out to me is his length. The guy is so long, and he's so physical at the catch point. If he does get a chance to get up and contest the catch, he is very physical kind of a player, good tackler as well. And behind, obviously, I would like Jeff Gladney. That's the guy that I really like. Obviously, Okudah, Christian Fulton, Gladney is probably the order I'd go there. Trayvon Diggs is definitely a nice consolation prize for this Broncos team, especially if they don't land another veteran cornerback in the free agency period. Now, Eric, I see you laughing over here. Let's go see if we can't find the comment here that you're kind of laughing at, man.
Okay, this one actually cracked me up. I think everyone is too high on Riggs. He's the 5th best wideout on my board. CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs. I can't say I disagree. CeeDee Lamb is my number 1 receiver, and it's not a super wide margin, but I find that very funny. Thank you, TJ, for TG for the laugh about that.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I mean, the work that CeeDee Lamb has done with the body awareness, the way that he can control and contort his body in the air, going and catching the football, the athleticism he showed at the combine, very clean route runner. He's I mean, there's a reason why he is widely considered as the number 1 wide receiver prospect in this class. Now, to kind of move this forward just a little bit, the Broncos are coming back. Oh, sorry. Excuse me, Harry. Go ahead.
Just one last note about it, because John Silva mentions it in the chat, is brother is a wide receiver. Yes, Trayvon Diggs' brother is Stephon Diggs, which I think could be a very, beneficial factor for getting Trayvon Diggs. He definitely has that ability to go and train with his brother, who has a very good route runner and can help him work on his weaknesses when he's not with the team in the offseason and things like that. So that is another factor that I actually would be interested to know how teams would value that kind of connection.
That is kind of an interesting connection. I wasn't aware of that. Now we do appreciate you for bringing that up. Now let's go back over, excuse me, to the mock draft simulator here. Going back over the last, 7 or 8 picks or so. Damon Arnett, cornerback, Ohio State to the Carolina Panthers. Troy Pride Jr. to Miami. Bryce Hall, a guy that I like to fit in this Broncos scheme. 71 to the Chargers. Justin Matabuika, your guy to the Cardinals at 72. Jeremy Chin, kind of a versatile athletic safety from Southern Illinois, small school guy to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bryson Hopkins, one of the top tight ends to the Browns. Matthew Pert, a guy that I've seen a lot of connections to the Denver Broncos here lately, to the Colts. Marlon Davidson to the Buccaneers. And now the Broncos sitting there looking pretty with Joshua Uche, Jacob Eason, Willie Gay Jr., Ezra Cleveland, Terrell Burgess as the top 5 players on the board. And now a guy that I've seen a lot on Twitter over the last couple of days, Benjamin Albright, some of the guys at the Draft Network, Terrell Burgess, the safety out of Utah. Eric, is this a potential area with the Broncos now placing the franchise tag on Justin Simmons earlier today? Is this an area where the Broncos could be looking at a rotational safety player with the potential loss of Will Parks?
I could definitely see it. He is probably one of my favorite safety fits for what the Broncos want. And he is a guy that can go and drop down, play in the slot. He can offer a little bit of boundary versatility, though not much, and eventually take over for Kareem Jackson. Very physical coming up against to the attack point. He is one of 2 players that, as soon as it got to the pick and you were going over all the previous ones, him and another were 2 players that I was eyeballing, and the chat definitely has the other one, with the other one being Ezra Cleveland. And the only knock I have on taking Terrell Burgess here is that I don't want to go back-to-back defensive backs. But the one thing that needs to be factored in here is what Vic Fangio said at the Combine. He talked about how the team and the NFL is going more towards basically more defensive backs, having those 5, 6, 7 defensive backs on the field and guys who can drop back into coverage. And it is very well known that Vic Fangio is a defensive-minded coach who likes to win with as few pass rushers as possible. So if they can add a guy who can be an interior pass rusher in the free agency to help Von Miller and Bradley Chubb and adding Draymond Jones in there, then you have 4 guys to get after the the quarterback, and then you have 7 guys that you can drop back into coverage taking care of the pass catchers, which is where Terrell Burgess steps in. As for Ezra Cleveland, this is a guy that I view as that not ideal tackle fit, but he fits very well because you can sit there and you can go, but Ezra Cleveland, he can play guard, he can play tackle, you can develop him, he can play left tackle, he can play right tackle. So he has that versatility to play multiple spots if needed this year. Because the Broncos do have faith in Elijah Wilkinson, and Mike Munchak is a huge fan of him playing right guard in this scheme, and that's where they wanted him last year, actually. But Juwan James and all that jazz. But you don't know what he's going to do. After watching him at tackle, it's hard for me to have super faith in Elijah Wilkinson at guard. I do think that he will be better there, but how much better? So getting that guy who can come in and help there as well as at tackles with Juwan James' injury history is definitely something to factor in and consider. Either way, I think this would be a win for the Broncos, going with either Ezra Cleveland or Terrell Burgess. Both of them would be great picks at this point and just be of value.
Now, we can scroll down, and that is another thing. Devon Hamilton, Alohi Gilman there, Jake Fromm, quarterback. That's probably not a place to go. Darnay Holmes, a cornerback from UCLA. Eno Benjamin, a interesting running back prospect out of Arizona State. He could probably fall to us down just a little bit further. Now, another guy that I saw some love going in the group chat here, Willie Gay Jr., the linebacker out of Mississippi State, absolutely blew up the combine, and a guy that I know that you had told Nick Kendall about several months ago. Actually, it was over the summer, I believe.
Yep.
You tipped off Willie Gay Jr. to Nick Kendall. Why don't you just speak about that and the ability that he has as a coverage linebacker for Vic Fangio's scheme that does place a lot of coverage tasks on his linebackers and safeties?
Now, so the issue with Willie Gay isn't on the field. He is a very good cover linebacker who doesn't shy away against the run. But it's off the field. there are a lot of concerns with him off the field that just make me kind of, is he really worth a third-round pick? After dealing with what we saw with Carlos Henderson, after knowing what we know about Vontaze Burfict, and some of the concerns I've heard about Willie Gay aren't dissimilar from that. So it's hard for me to sit there and pound the table for Willie Gay with a third-round pick. Day 3, yes. If this was the 4th round, I would be pounding the table for it because, well, it's still a risk. It's not a huge risk. So I can't really pound the table for Willie Gay at this point, just simply because of the off-field stuff that he has.
That's a fair assessment. I mean, off-field things are definitely hard to really work around unless you have a good scouting, a good scouting staff that can go and really kind of weed through those issues. Now, there was a comment specifically to Troy Dye, the linebacker out of Oregon, asking if he was available. And as I scrolled down, I did actually see that Troy Dye was available. If you had to make a pick between the two, Willie Gay or Troy Dye here at number 77.
Well, at this pick, I'd be going with Troy Dye. I mean, as I said, it just comes down to, I think that the player, just a player on the field, Willie Gay is the better player. But factoring in the off-field, then definitely Troy Dye is the better value. And Chris Sanders actually comes in making a good point. Burgess plays at elevation too. Yes, he does. John Elway is known to love Utah players because of the elevation they play at. It is actually one of the schools that is basically most represented on the Broncos roster.
That's fair. Now, guys, we're running up against the clock here. We got to make this pick. So we've outlined a little bit of the, at least a few of the guys that are available. Running back up to the top: Joshua Uche, Jacob Eason, Willie Gay, Ezra Cleveland, Terrell Burgess. Obviously, Troy Dye is available. Make your voices heard. Who's the pick? I mean, if it's me, to me, I think that getting a linebacker is probably a good move here. Getting a guy that can go and fit in, and potentially with Todd Davis. And you and I have kind of talked about this at length before with Todd Davis and Steven Alexander Johnson. I always do that. Alexander Johnson being kind of the same kind of a player, limited in pass coverage, definitely good against the run. I think that getting a coverage linebacker here would be a better way to go in this certain situation, just because, as you said, going back-to-back defensive backs is probably not the best idea. But as we are looking at this, it looks like I'm seeing a lot of Ezra Cleveland is what I'm seeing here. So,
and this is what, the 77th overall pick, right?
Yes, it is.
We'll be back on the clock here in about 6 picks, so maybe Terrell Burgess is still there.
Yeah, and that's a very true fact. We actually had this happen on the last time with Denzel Mims. We took Jalen Johnson, the cornerback out of Utah, over Denzel Mims. So I'm going to go ahead and click Ezra Cleveland, the offensive tackle from Boise State here, and get this kind of moving. Now, the last time we did this, as I was just saying, we took Jalen Johnson, the cornerback out of Utah, based on what you guys had told us, over Denzel Mims, and Denzel Mims fell to us. Now, in this kind of a scenario with the way that Denzel Mims blew up the combine, it's probably not going to happen. But with Terrell Burgess, there's definitely a possibility he's going to be there. Now, to go back to some of these questions here, let's see if I can't find something here. Here we go. Justin's Pro Football Scouting Analysis says Davion Taylor, the linebacker from Colorado, my dog, is rising fast. Eric, he ran a 4.39, I believe is what it was, at his pro day the other day, and Laviska Shenault, the wide receiver out of Colorado, did not participate. So Davion Taylor kind of stole the show with that kind of athleticism. What do you think of that guy?
One thing that I have really come to learn over the last few years is that NFL teams love athletic but raw defensive players. And basically, plenty of examples. Tano Kapasuna of the Kansas City Chiefs, even Denver with Brandon Langley a few years back. So their teams love that. They love because, and what it all comes down to is a coach's willingness to bet on their ability to coach up the football side of things. You can't teach athleticism. You can teach them how to play football. That's what it comes down to. Based on tape alone, Davion Taylor for me is probably a 6th or 7th round pick. But when you factor in his athleticism, I'm comfortable taking him in the 5th round. But it's just that fact that he is so very raw. It's going to take a lot of time to get him developed. I could see a team taking him in the top 100 though, just betting on that.
And you know what? That actually lines up directly with our next super chat. Jordan Johnson coming in, super chat superstar on the Huddle Up podcast. Jordan, we appreciate you joining us, man. Thank you for the $20 donation. Hey, Lance and Eric, the Huddle Up guys mentioned Elway's draft philosophy, players with intangibles, football IQ, competitiveness, and leadership. Do the picks we've made tonight so far have these traits? Now, this is more of a question for inside analysis. So, Erick, I'm going to kind of let you take it away. But I mean, there is a lot of questions, not necessarily with the leadership ability of Henry Ruggs, but is there kind of a prima donna mentality with him as far as I'm the fastest guy on the field, I want to be the superstar? Is there any kind of something like that might come up with him?
So I can't remember who it was I was talking with, but I was talking to somebody big with receivers and everything. And this is what he said. He said, every receiver, every good receiver has arrogance. They want to be the best. They believe they're the best. Henry Ruggs has that, but it's not to the point where Odell Beckham Jr. where he's going to cause problems. He is a leader on the field. He knows and understands that his speed offers up so much for the offense and opens up so many other things for that. So he's not a leader by rah-rah. He's a leader by doing what is asked and helping others as a result of that. His football IQ, I've heard nothing but praise about that. Same with Trayvon Diggs. Same with Ezra Cleveland. Nothing but praise about how smart they are when it comes to football. And basically, one big thing with Ezra Cleveland is there's been a lot of round one talk with him, and a lot of it stems from his versatility and his leadership and his football IQ. So he definitely fits the bill there. Trayvon Diggs, he definitely fits the bill with that. One big thing with all the three of these players is they fit those traits that Elway is looking for.
That's great to hear. I'm glad we're kind of falling in line with that. Now, Terry Randall, Super Chat superstar Terry Randall coming in, and he with another $10 donation. Terry, thank you very much for joining us again today. We appreciate you and all of your support. Hey, guys, Erick, you are my draft guru. Thumbs up, attaboy. Hashtag state of being. That is the hashtag for the Huddle Up podcast. Terry, again, thank you, sir. Mile high salute to you.
Thank you for stroking my ego.
It's not hard to do. I'm telling you guys, it's really not hard to do. Now let's get back to this draft board just a little bit. And the Broncos sitting at number 83 overall. Again, Joshua Uche, Terrell Burgess, the safety out of Utah, still sitting there looking pretty. Jonathan Greenard, the edge out of Florida. Jalen Hurts, quarterback from Oklahoma. Alohi Gilman, another safety from Notre Dame. Darrell Taylor, the edge out of Tennessee. And Jake Fromm, again, line out the top prospects available. And I have a feeling I'm already going to kind of know where this is going. We're seeing it right off the bat. Chris Sanders coming in on YouTube. Burgess, please. I mean, is this where we go? Is this the time that we get the Burgess? Or, again, here's another name. We talked about him earlier. Troy Dye, the linebacker out of Oregon. I mean, this is kind of an interesting spot here because both players can play in the box. They can both cover very well. Is which one do you prefer though? With the Broncos needing a coverage linebacker more than they do a safety right now, with Justin Simmons in tow and with Kareem Jackson coming back, do you go with the safety or do you go get that coverage linebacker?
So while I'm talking, why don't you scroll and see if Logan Wilson's still on there? We've had a couple people asking about that. But as answering this question, I go back to what Vic Fangio said about the defense in the NFL going towards more defensive backs. Troy Dye, I'm a big fan of his. He's definitely value, I think, at this point. But I am concerned because he did play on a messed up knee that he just recently had a head surgery for. And there have been some concerns about how long he will be out. They think he'll be ready by the season, but how long into training camp, preseason will he be out? That is a concern there. But it's going down to the versatility of the defense and more defensive backs. Terrell Burgess, you have your starting number 3 safety right away. Yes, you need to cover linebacker, but you know how you can also cover tight ends and running backs without a cover linebacker? With a number 3 safety. With more defensive backs on the field, you can do that. You can be more versatile with what you want to cover, with how you want to cover. You can offer up more confusion to the opposing quarterback and just be basically more versatile. That's a big key here. Plus, we do have another pick coming up soon again, thanks to the Broncos having 3 third-round picks. So maybe we can go and get Terrell Burgess here and then look at that cover linebacker. I think that the end of the 3rd round is actually really good value for cover linebackers. I think that's where you can really start looking at Troy Dye, Akeem Davis-Gaither because of their injury stuff. Logan Wilson, I think maybe might be a little bit early there. Davion Taylor, I think this would be a point where you can start looking at him as well. But with this pick, I'm definitely looking at Terrell Burgess. But it is hard because, I mean, I think the Broncos want to draft more offense, but at the same point is they don't want to just completely ignore going young on the defense either.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, with the Broncos and what the mentality that we've heard so far, especially with what Benjamin Albright said a couple of weeks ago, was that they were going to buy a defense and then draft an offense. And right now, just the value that's on the board, it's not looking like a lot of the offensive players are falling. We are seeing the quarterbacks that we thought were going to be here, Jalen Hurts, Jake Fromm, but really just going down through the let me pull this up really fast. Going down through the top part of this draft. I mean, below Jake Fromm, you got Sadiq Charles, the offensive tackle from LSU, Eno Benjamin, Ben Barch, Hunter Bryant. So we're seeing some of the guys that, I mean, I don't see the Broncos taking another tight end with Noah Fant in the fold, especially with the way that Pat Shurmur likes to run with 11 personnel. Troy Dye, Van Jefferson, kind of a good route runner, but not the most explosive athlete. I mean, it's a lot of defensive talent here. So why not take a defensive player to go along with that kind of getting younger on the defensive mentality? There was a question that I wanted to grab before we before we make this pick. Jim Fisher coming in on YouTube says, let's go get that dog Alohi Gilman. Now, as far as Burgess versus Gilman, why are their skill sets so different, and what could Gilman do to bring himself onto this Broncos team?
I think that Gilman's a lot more limited. I don't want to say he's a bad prospect. I'm not very high on him. I wasn't a fan of his tape. I came away very low and disappointed with what I saw from him. And he's a guy that's getting a lot of hype, but I just don't see it. I think there is a clear tier difference between them. And just with what's available, I think that Terrell Burgess is a tier 1 with what's left available, whereas Alohi Gilman's probably tier 4, tier 5. So at this point, I'm not looking at Gilman. Sorry, Jim. Like he's just not a guy for me.
And that's fair. And going back through the comment stream, because we are up against the clock here. Yeah, go Burgess and then go Logan. Burgess right after that. Burgess again. So I think that's what we're going to do. Let me pull this up here, get rid of this comment, and I will select Terrell Burgess, the safety out of Utah, and then we will continue on with this here. Excuse me. I'm still battling kind of a chest cold, guys. Go ahead, Eric.
We did get another super chat in. Let me go back and find it. Evan McKinley comes in with $1.99. Thank you for that. We appreciate all super chats. Thank you guys so much for supporting us and the stream. And he asks, what do you think about another wide receiver early in the draft? I'm all for it. And I think that come actual draft, I think the Broncos will walk away with 2 receivers in the top 100. One reason why I'm not advocating for it during this, and this is just me, is because I absolutely love the depth of this. I think there's a lot of talent there that's going to be there day 3. And it's because there's so many guys. I think I have 17 or 18 receivers in my top 100. They're not all going to go in the top 100. I want to see who falls. We got one of my number 2 receiver and Henry Ruggs with this. Let's wait. Let's see what happens. And basically start looking at that round 4, maybe 5.
Yeah. It's such a deep wide receiver class. It's absolutely insanely deep. You don't really have to go with the back-to-back wide receivers. I like it depending on the skill set you get in the first round and then compared to the second round. If you get if we go Jerry Jeudy there at 15 instead of Henry Ruggs, I love Jalen Reagor to pair with that. Right away, we had that opportunity to take Henry Ruggs and then Jalen Reagor right beside it. If you get Jeudy and Reagor, I think that's just absolutely perfect pair. Now, Jerry Holland coming in on Facebook says, okay, I brought this up with Chad and Zach and later saw an article by Erick that supports my fear somewhat. My fear is a scenario where we pass on the top 3 wide receivers on our first pick, and because of it, we miss out on the top 4 to 6, Mims, Reagor, Jefferson, Shenault. Because maybe the people who picked before us that focused on other positions in the first round now are circling back around and getting their wide receivers, picking before us again and snatching up the remaining 4 to 6 top wide receivers before our 46 picks. It's bugging me.
I think that if Denver doesn't go receiver at 15, which I think is very unlikely, I think we can see them potentially move down or take another player. Maybe they take Javon Kinlaw if he's there, or maybe they go with a cornerback. They definitely have their options open, and then they look to move back up. I think that they will walk away with at least one of the receivers and probably the top 6 or 7 guys. So
another super chat coming in here. Evan McKinley with another $2 donation. Evan, we appreciate you, man. Keep your eyes on Lynn Bowden for a late round sleeper.
Yeah, okay. Lynn Bowden is a guy who he can do it all. He's played quarterback, he's played receiver, he's played running back, very athletic, very raw. But this comes back to what I was saying about Davion Taylor. Coaches love to bet on raw, athletic players and then coaching them up to play football. That's exactly what Lynn Bowden is. Okay, that's fair. Now let's get back to this draft here. And the Broncos on the clock at number 95 overall, just going back over the last
Natani Moody, the interior offensive lineman from Fresno State, Sadiq Charles from LSU, to the Houston Texans, Troy Dye, unfortunately, to the Oakland Raiders. That kind of sucks. Van Jefferson to the Baltimore Ravens, Laurel Murchison, interior defensive lineman from North Carolina State that kind of blew up the Senior Bowl, to the Tennessee Titans, Evan Weaver, linebacker, to the Green Bay Packers. And sitting up at the top of the draft, this is not really fallen very well for the Broncos, especially with what their needs line up. And the guy that I have my cursor on here, Eno Benjamin, a kind of sneaky good pass catcher, very patient runner between the tackles, very tough runner as well. Erick, with the Broncos needing another running back to come in and pair with Philip Lindsay, does Eno Benjamin fit the fold? Is he a guy that Pat Shurmur could be pounding the table for here at the early part of the 4th round?
All right, so go ahead and pull up linebackers while I answer this. With Benjamin, he is a, I don't want to say super athletic, but he is a solid athlete who offers that receiver ability that you're looking for from your running back position to help complement Philip Lindsay and be that piece. My concern with him is that he's not the toughest of runners between the tackles. I'd like to be him a little bit tougher, and I think that if Denver is looking to find that complementary piece, then they want somebody who can go and do that. I'm looking at who else is available. There's one name. I'm a big fan of his. I think that at this point he's good value, even though clearly the TDN guys are a little bit known or a little bit lower on him than I am, and that's Akeem Davis-Gaither. And I've spoken about it multiple times. Vic Fangio, he loves the versatility of defense. Akeem Davis-Gaither, he's a guy, he played deep safety, he played linebacker, he played off the edge, he played in the slot, he even played on the boundary a few snaps this last season. He's a guy that can do it all. He's a guy that basically just adds so much to your defense and just adds another versatile piece. And with what Denver has already done on the defense with Terrell Burgess and Trevon Diggs, and then just adding him as well to that, that would be a tremendous unit that has plenty of youth in key aspects going forward in positions that they definitely need to upgrade for the future.
Yeah, and that's fair. And, I mean, another guy that people are kind of pounding the table for, he's my guy. Logan Wilson, linebacker out of Wyoming, had a very good combine, ran a little bit about as fast as I thought he was going to be, 4.6 area, something like that. Had another really good showing at his pro day the other day. I mean, between Davis-Gaither and Logan Wilson here, and obviously the Draft Network guys are a lot lower on Logan Wilson than a lot of people are in the draft community, because they have him as their number 308 overall prospect. You have to search to find him.
I think it's just a matter of fact that, and we see this with James Lynch too, is that they haven't really fully watched all these prospects enough to grade them. So I'm assuming that's what the case is with Logan Wilson. They just haven't quite got there yet to watch enough to really rank him yet. I like Logan Wilson. I don't like him more than Akeem Davis-Gaither. I think that Logan Wilson is more of a traditional linebacker who can help cover. And with the way the game is going, Akeem Davis-Gaither fits the future linebacker position a lot more than Logan Wilson does. And I'm a big fan of Logan Wilson. But again, it's just, do you want a guy who's slowly being pushed aside for the modern era, or the guy who fits that modern era and going forward?
Yeah, and that's fair. Just that do-it-all versatile chess piece, and I think that Vic Fangio would absolutely love to have a guy of his skill set. Now, as excuse me, guys, I do apologize. As I go down to the comment stream here, we're gonna have to kind of get this moving. We're running this really long. We do apologize. We got to kind of get going here. Akeem Davis-Gaither is definitely the guy that everybody seems to be looking at here. So let me pull up the draft here, and we're going to go with Akeem Davis-Gaither, linebacker out of Appalachian State. Now, there was another super chat up here. Let me go grab that really fast, because this is kind of an interesting question for you, knowing that you have a big board of roughly about 350 players or so, something like that.
Over 400 at this point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. James Dean coming in with a super chat with a $5 donation. James, we do appreciate you, man. The Broncos are known for the awesome undrafted talent we get every year, it seems. My question is, who do you see has that potential as an undrafted player?
I get questions like this a lot, and I always feel bad because I always take the easy way out. And the simple fact is that it's almost impossible to answer at this stage. No idea who's going to get drafted, no idea who's not, because every year there's players that go a lot higher than we think. There's a lot of players that I think are going to go undrafted and get drafted. There's a lot of players that I think are going to get drafted and go undrafted. Very hard to answer. Just going off of my board as guys that I have as undrafted free agents, there is one in Tavian Feaster. He's a running back. I want to say that from South Carolina. I might be mistaken on that. that I really like. He can offer up that pass catcher. He can be tough between the tackles. John Phillips is an interior offensive lineman from Boston College. Very well versed technically as a run blocker. Pass protection needs a little bit of work there. Looking at other guys, Monquavian Brinson, he's a cornerback that has some athletic upside that you can potentially bet on to develop and have him become like a solid number 3, number 4 corner. Let's see here. TJ Brunson, I think that if you want an old school linebacker, he definitely fits. Kakoa Nawahin, a safety out of Boise State. He's a guy that not the most versatile safety, but he offers some versatility with decent coverage, especially for a cover 2 like Vic Fangio's, that you can take a shot on him to try and develop into be a number 3 safety. And then probably if Denver needed a tight end, Joey Magnifico out of Memphis, I think he's a guy that is a solid blocker, solid receiver threat to offer up that kind of versatility.
No, that's fair. A guy that I think that he's probably going to get drafted, but a guy that really fits there as kind of that late round gem, not necessarily undrafted free agent kind of a gem. Salvin Ahmed, running back out of Washington. I think that's his name, right?
Salvin Ahmed.
Yes, Ahmed. That's it. Excuse me. Salvin Ahmed, the running back out of Washington, very patient runner, very good in zone. I think that he could actually fit in with what the Broncos need to do as far as another running back that can take some of the heat off of Phillip Lindsay. Now, to get let's see here. All of the picks that we've had so far we're at the Broncos picking at 118. I believe this is one of their compensatory selections. Let's see. Thaddeus Moss, tight end to Carolina Panthers. Damian Lewis, the interior offensive lineman to the Arizona Cardinals. Jason Strobridge, a very versatile interior defensive lineman, can play some edge if you need to as a 4-3 defensive end to the Browns. Alex Highsmith, an edge from Charlotte to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Anthony Gordon, a guy who I thought bombed the combine. That was just my personal opinion, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Joe Bacci Jr., linebacker, Michigan State on the board. Marcus Bailey. Excuse me. We're still on linebacker. Excuse me. I'm sorry. All right. Kevon Wallace, Brandon Jones, Chase Claypool, a guy that I really kind of like, especially with the athleticism that he showed at the combine. Wide receiver out of Notre Dame, still available. Kenny Willekes, edge out of Michigan State. Anthony McFarland, running back from Maryland. And Albert Okwegbenem, I believe is how you say his name, tight end out of Missouri. Drew Lock's old running mate, still available. Eric, at this particular point, where do you think the Broncos need to go?
With what we've done, what we still need, interior offensive line, interior defensive line. Those are the 2 positions I'm looking at. So why don't you pull those up? And I want to take this question out here. Somebody asked about Draymond Jones and him not being, and made a comment about him not being utilized and becoming another Adam Gotsis. That's not true. The Denver Broncos utilized him a lot this last season. As a pass rusher, he was actually I think he actually was the highest rookie pass rusher this last year in terms of pass rush proficiency or productivity is what it actually is. It's PRP. So they're definitely using him. He still has to work on his run defense. He definitely showed progress as the season went on. He's going to have a big role this next season, not like Adam Gotsis, who took a lot longer to develop than Draymond Jones did. And Adam Gotsis, I was a big fan of his for what he was, but he never had that real tremendous upside as a pass rusher that we have already seen from Draymond Jones. He's being used. He's going to continue to be used. He's not going to end up like another Adam Gotsis.
Okay. Before we get into this, I got to go grab a couple of these super chats here. Anthony James coming in. This is just kind of a quick question for you here, Eric. Please explain Brandon Ayuk, the wide receiver from Arizona State, and his current draft range. Now, from what I've seen, I'm going to answer this just kind of briefly. Brandon Ayuk, anywhere from the middle of the second round to early third round is probably kind of his range right now. Now, Eric, I'm going to let you kind of speak to his skill set and maybe kind of shed a little bit more light on the subject.
I think that you're underestimating his draft range here. There's been a lot of talk about him going late first round, early second, and I think that's in the end that's where he's going to end up going. And the basic reason for that is he brings speed and he brings playmaking ability underneath. He can take those short passes and make a huge play out of it. And looking at some of the guys who are available, and Buonabeast actually asks a good question: has Ishmael gone yet? Keith Ishmael is a center out of San Diego State, I believe is what it is. You may have to scroll down a little bit to find him. And this is a guy that I know that the draft networks, they're not super high on, but this is a guy that I think that in the 4th round is really good value for basically the Broncos. He brings exactly what they need. And center is the one position where, from what I've heard, the Broncos do like Patrick Morris and Austin Schlottman to compete for the job, but they would like to add another piece there. It could be BJ Finney in free agency from the Pittsburgh Steelers. but he is one guy who could potentially be that option to add more competition. I think that at this point he would be really good value for the Broncos. He can run the zone concepts. He can run the gap concepts, power concepts. He can run all of it. So I think that adds to his value. Very smart guy. I've heard nothing but positives about as a person, as a player. So this would be a guy that I'd be looking at. And I see that TG says Claypool would be steal here. Thank you guys, by the way, for the super chats.
Yes,
very
thank you both.
He says Claypool would be a steal here. I definitely agree. My issue with Claypool is that he is a combination of Noah Fant and Cortland Sutton. So
yeah, that's fair.
Basically what it is.
Excuse me. Now getting to the board here, Shane Lemieux, interior offensive line, Solomon Kinley, interior offensive line, Georgia, Ben Bredesen, a guy that I know you're really high on, Michael Onwenu, the interior offensive lineman from Michigan, both of those guys. The fact that the Michigan Wolverines have 3 guys in the interior offensive line, mixing in Cesar Ruiz, their center, 3 guys that could get drafted this year in the top 5 rounds, is just mind-boggling how good that interior offensive line was. Now, to go to the interior defensive line prospects here for you, you have Lecky Fotu, interior defensive line from Utah, Jordan Elliott, McTelvin Ajim, Bravion Roy, and Khalil Davis. Those are your top 5 players. Now, Eric, just specifically, you already broke down the Ismail kid. With Shane Lemieux, the heavy zone concepts that they run in Oregon, I think that's kind of a very perfect scheme fit for what the Broncos want to do on the offensive line with Pat Shurmur. Am I wrong on that?
With Shane Lemieux is, yes, at Oregon, they run a little bit more zone stuff, but I think that in the NFL, he's going to be a lot better fit in a power scheme, and the Broncos are probably going to use a mixture of it. So I think that he actually could be a really good fit here. My only problem with is, unlike Ishmael, Lemieux is just a guard. He's not going to offer tackle versatility. He's not going to offer center versatility. And the Broncos love versatility on their offensive line. Just about every single player except for Garrett Bowles and Jawan James can play multiple spots on their offensive line. So I think that with that in mind, if you're looking at interior offensive line, Shane Lemieux isn't the better option than Keith Ishmael. I think that one thing with Shane Lemieux is that he has going for him is he played at Oregon. Obviously, that's a much bigger school than San Diego State. And then a lot of people in here are talking about Lecky Fotu, and big reason with him is, yes, there are some injury concerns with him and some issues with pad level. Big dude. Some people believe that he's going to be coming off the field, but not in the typical big boy way. He offers more as a pass rusher than he does as a run defender, which is the complete opposite than from what you normally see of players 320 plus pounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the explosiveness that he has off the line of scrimmage, the shoulder injuries and stuff like that he has is just horrible. But at the same time, the explosiveness, the quick first step, the hand fighting that he does display, I really like Lecky Fotu in this defense. It's just great. Now the defensive lineman that I would go with here is not Lecky Fotu, but it's Jordan Elliott. Jordan Elliott, let's see here. I believe Missouri. Jordan Elliott from Missouri. Now, why Jordan Elliott over Lecky Fotu?
Basically, is that he offers a lot more as a pass rusher, and run defender. And with the Broncos, they're looking at to get help on the interior to help with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller on the outside. So I think that getting that guy up the middle who can really bring that, he's so quick up there. Sack totals aren't the highest. His production totals aren't the highest, but he was super disruptive for Missouri, and that is exactly what the Broncos need. They need somebody who can be, as I like to refer to them, a true disruptor in the middle of that defensive line who can sit there and help take pressure off of Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. Big reason why I'm all for that. In the end, I still think that center with Keith Ishmael would be the better way to go. But guys, we are running actually super long here.
Yeah, so we need to get this kind of moving forward here.
Go ahead and get this in here. Which way do you guys want to go?
I'm looking back up through it, and I'm seeing a lot of Fotu talk right now. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to go and grab Lecky Fotu, the interior defensive lineman out of Utah.
I wouldn't be so quick. You already did.
Oh, it's too bad. Sorry, guys. Elliott over Fotu.
I was going to say, actually, there's a lot of Claypool.
There is a lot of Claypool in there as well. I did see some Claypool. I saw the Fotu Claypool or Lemieux, and then there was a lot of Fotu right after that. I was scrolling up just a little bit.
Sorry, guys. Blame Lance.
That's my fault. You can hate me all you want to. Come at me on Twitter at Sanderson MH if you absolutely want to. Claypool hater, he says, yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is not me. Do not say that. Size, length, speed, athleticism. The guy has it all. He's fairly decent hands, too. I really wish that I could have seen him run a little bit better routes, but at the same time, I do like Chase Claypool a lot. And as somebody said, you could put him as a tight end sometimes. Like there was a lot of talk about him playing at the tight end position, 6'4", 238, running 4.39, 4.4, something like that.
People made it clear is he is a mismatch just waiting to happen. The issue is that he is just a combination. He is just a combination of Courtland Sutton and Noah Fant. And as much as I like him, I'm a huge fan of him. I think he's got a second round grade. I'm always throwing my colleagues under the bus. Are you kidding me? But is that I just don't think that would be the way that the Broncos go. They're looking for complementary skill sets, and Claypool, as much of a mismatch he just isn't that right complementary piece.
Yeah, and that's fair. Now, going back to the draft here, we have Colin Johnson on the board, Jared Pinkney, Tyler Johnson, a wide receiver out of Minnesota, who really did not help his draft stock at the combine. Actually kind of bombed some interviews and really rubbed some people the wrong way.
So, to help speed this up, I'm just going to tell you, just go to interior offensive line. I think that this is where we have to go get somebody in that interior offensive line. We've done a lot on defense already, and I think we've done a lot more on defense, and I think the Broncos actually will. Let's look at these guys, and one big reason why is there's two players that stand out. You have Jake Hansen, the center from Oregon, who can do a lot for the Broncos offense. Very smart guy, leader on the interior. And Michael Onwenu, a guard who doesn't offer up much position versatility. He's similar to a Shane Lemieux in that, but I think that he has plenty of power. He can definitely go in and compete with Elijah Wilkinson right away. And you also have the potential of, and I'm not a big fan of this, don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of doing this, is moving Dalton Reisner to center. And then you can have Onwenu either at right guard or left guard, and Elijah Wilkinson at the other spot with Dalton Reisner at center. And the reason why I'm not a big fan of it isn't because I don't think that Dalton Reisner would be an even better center than he would a guard. I don't want to sit there and have to start over with chemistry between Garrett Bowles and whoever the new left guard is. I don't want to sit there and have Dalton Reisner go and learn a new position. So that's one reason why I'm not for it. But it would make sense because Dalton Reisner, I have no doubts, would be the smartest player on the offensive line. Center is where you want your smartest player to be. They're the ones that are typically making all the calls for the unit. So
Terry Randall coming in really fast with another $2 donation. Thank you, Terry. My name's on the ticker twice, so hashtag state of being.
Terry, we love you, man. Terry.
That's because we love you, man. Now, let's see here. Just going back through the comments just a little bit. I'm seeing Hansen, Onwenu, Hansen I like, Solomon Kennedy, Nick Harris, who I believe is gone at this particular point, a guy that Bawana Beast had spoken about and you had kind of went at length on, and Keith Ishmael is still on the board as well. So that interior offensive line, guys, this is kind of where we're pounding the table. Is it going to be Hansen? Is it going to be Michael Onwenu, who at 360 pounds really can move? That guy is a gigantic behemoth of a man and can move. He may not be Mekhi Becton athletic, but for 360 pounds, the guy's absolutely a piece that can play as a zone interior offensive lineman. Now, looks like I'm seeing a lot of Hansen here.
So one reason why I didn't talk about Ishmael is because I just don't think that he would be here. Yes, he's here in the simulation, but I think at this point he's definitely gone. That's one reason why I didn't talk about him. Although in the simulation, since he's there, we can still definitely take him, and I would be ecstatic because he offers up that versatility to play center or guard, which is something that neither Onwenu or Hansen have. I think Hansen is just a center in the NFL, and I think Onwenu is just a guard in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like a lot of the comments rolling in are going to agree with you, and it looks like Hansen is going to be the selection here. So let me move ourselves back up to the top here. Excuse me.
That's perfectly fine because in the NFL, GMs often ignore the scouts anyways.
That's fair. That's fair. Bawana Beast coming back and it says, "Ooh, Hansen or Ishmael if he's still there."
I tried.
Bawana Beast, we tried for you, man. All right, now this is kind of an area that the Broncos have addressed a lot of needs. We're going to go back over to this and I want you guys to focus on just the picks that we've had so far. We're seeing a lot of that, the comments on here asking who we've taken so far. We've got Henry Ruggs, the third wide receiver out of Alabama, Trevon Diggs, the cornerback from Alabama as well, Ezra Cleveland, the offensive tackle from Boise State, Terrell Burgess, the safety from Utah, Akeem Davis-Gaither, the linebacker from Appalachian State, another Utah defender, Lecky Fotu on the interior defensive line, and Jake Hansen. And as we get back to the live version of this, wide receiver, let's go back to this wide receiver position. I think that this is kind of an area where there's going to be some value here. Michael Pittman Jr., the wide receiver out of USC. I think that's kind of a decent fit here. Quintez Cephas, wide receiver out of Wisconsin, to kind of run it down the board just a little bit. Darrington Evans, a running back out of Appalachian State, kind of an interesting prospect there. LaMichael Pirine from Florida. Keyshawn Vaughn, a guy that I know that you were very high on, Eric, if we were still in the Rich Scangarello system. Now, just here, I kind of think that going after another wide receiver, especially in this deep class, is kind of a way to go. Eric, do you agree or disagree here?
I actually agree. I think that I wanted to look at wide receiver a couple picks ago, but at this point, I mean, we definitely have to. I think that Denver definitely wants to go and add more receivers. I think, as I said earlier, I think they want to get 2 receivers in the top 100. So at this point, definitely pull it up. So why don't we go ahead and pull up the other receivers? Because I don't want to go Quintez Cephas. There's a lot of off-field issues there. I don't want to go Michael Pittman because he is just another Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton type of player. So looking at some of these other guys, Antonio Gandy Golden, he's here. I don't want to talk much about him because I don't think he's there. If you want to add more speed, Tyree Cleveland, he brings plenty of speed to the offense.
Yep.
Lynn Bowden, he brings plenty of versatility. Jawan Jennings, if you want a guy who's a possession receiver that can be complementary to what the Broncos already have and be a tremendous blocker. I think he's actually, in my opinion, the best blocker at receiver in this class. So that's definitely an option as well. Aaron Parker, a guy not many people know about and from Rhode Island, could probably get him a little bit later. So he's an option as well. But for me, the guy I'm looking at the most at this point is probably this guy that you actually just scrolled down to, is James Proche out of SMU. Not the most athletic guy, but he can play the slot. He offers up enough versatility to play outside as well and can really work underneath. And when you're pairing up that kind of ability with Henry Ruggs, who can take the top off the defense and create the ultimate spacing, he is a tremendous fit with this Broncos offense.
Yeah. I am Supreme 22 coming in with a $5 donation on the Super Chat. Any former Bama players that have played for Fangio that could help sway Elway into breaking his no Bama drafting policy? Ruggs is a given. Anybody else? Well, we already kind of went that route with Trevon Diggs, the cornerback out of Alabama. I know Raekwon Davis is another guy there. Eric, is there anybody? I mean, what, Terrell Lewis or is that? Yeah, that's the Ed player. Names are escaping me right now. I'm sorry.
So.
Excuse me.
Another Bama player that would be interesting for Vic Fangio's defense is not too similar, but not too dissimilar from a guy that we actually took, and Terrell Burgess. But the player from Alabama is Jared Maiden, who actually caught a lot of attention. I think it was at the Senior Bowl, might have been Shrine Bowl. Can't remember which one, but he caught a lot of attention there. And I know there's a lot of fans of him in the NFL. He's a guy who can be a very versatile piece in the secondary, offers up the ability to play multiple spots. So that is another guy that could potentially be a Bama player that Vic Fangio could potentially convince him to get. Trevon Diggs is another, of course.
Yeah. Now, getting back to the draft here, especially with the wide receivers, I've kind of scrolled up a little bit, and I'm seeing a lot of Lynn Bowden, the wide receiver out of Kentucky there. So I think that's kind of the direction we're going to go here.
Let's go Lynn Bowden. Yeah.
Yep.
And the next pick, let's get to running backs.
Let's go to the running back position, don't you think, huh? Okay, so at the top, Darrington Evans, the running back from Appalachian State, LaMichael Pirine, Keyshawn Vaughn, Patrick Taylor Jr., the running back out of Memphis, Siwo Olananula, I can't say his name. I apologize for that. Joshua Kelly, guy that we took in our last mock draft in the 7th round, actually available here out of UCLA. So let's just speak to some of the guys that we have there and try to get this moving forward a little bit.
Well, the guy that stands out is Darrington Evans. He's a guy that he can be tough between the tackles. Can't remember how many yards he had between the tackles, but it was a pretty good number. And he offers really good ability to catch on the outside and out of the backfield. LaMichael Pirine as well. He is a tremendous route runner. He's a guy that you can split out wide. He's a guy that has pretty solid hands as well. Very tough runner between tackles. But I think unlike Evans, Perrin is a little bit more limited to the outside runs, whereas Evans is a little bit more versatile with the ability to run both of them. If we're going running back at this point, that's the guy I'm looking at is Darrington Evans out of Appalachian State.
And Justin, Pro Football Scouting Analysis coming in, and he says Evans is a speedy back. So that could add another, that multi-dimensional speed that the Broncos are kind of lacking right now with the offensive weapons that they have.
He does have a lot of speed, but one thing about his game that I think is very underrated is the toughness that he has. And he has a lot of toughness in his running, which is what is able to help him hold up when running between the tackles.
Yeah. All right, so just trying to get this moving forward, guys. Not really a general consensus here. I'm seeing a lot of Antonio Gibson there. No, he's not there. He went a long time ago. We actually had an opportunity to take him. I believe it was in the 4th round. And we kind of passed on him. Take a running back in the 7th round. Well, unfortunately, this is kind of not how this one's shaking out. There's not really good value right now. So, let's go back to the overall. To the top players here that are available, and just kind of take a look at that really fast. Michael Pittman, Jordan Fuller, Quintez Cephas, J.R. Reed, Javelin Guidry, the safety out of Utah, Darrington Evans is right there. So
we've already taken a safety in Terrell Burgess. We've already taken 2 receivers, and I don't see Michael Pittman or Quintez Cephas coming in and adding more to that. So best player available on this is Darrington Evans. Now, to answer the thing about taking 2 running backs in the 7th round is I'm a big fan of this running back class. But I think that the 6th round is where you really want to look, especially looking at who's left available. I'm going to be looking at, as I said, Darrington Evans. There's not many other positions at this point that I think are good value. So it's hard to say, but you guys go ahead and pick out who you want. And we can look at a running backs later. We can look at punters a little bit later. I think that's probably what we'd do is probably take a punter with the last pick if you guys vote for that. And we can double dip on safety. Yes, we definitely could, but the Broncos do like Trey Marshall.
Yes.
They like Trey Marshall, so they're just looking at that linebacker or that safety to help replace Will Parks. And J.R. Reed is very limited. He's that box safety guy that just doesn't have a role in Vic Fangio's defense. Like, he likes guys that offer up a lot more versatility than what J.R. Reed offers.
Yeah. That's fair. Now, I went to the interior defensive line prospects here just out of curiosity to see if there's a guy that I know that you're kind of high on. James Lynch out of Baylor. Is this a kind of an intriguing option here?
So I mentioned him earlier. This is one of those picks where the TDN guys, they haven't just done enough work to really boost him up. I don't think he'd be here. I mean, he's not the most athletic guy, but he wins with technique and power, and teams that's where they typically go 3rd, 4th round. That's where they like them. Not super athletic, but reliable guys. So I don't think he'd still be there. But at this point, I mean, in this simulation, we're taking about who's available. We can definitely take Lynch at this point.
Yep. Yes, we can. So let's see here. I'm going to go back through and kind of make a decision here. Man at punter, Evans. I like the safety from Utah, but we already picked one already. Evans. Let's see here. Pittman fallen. I think we're just going to have to go with Darrington Evans. I think that's kind of the way that we need to go with this here. Excuse me, guys, as I'm trying to now get over this cold for 2 weeks in a row. Let's see, Eric, is there anything else on your mind as far as just some players available that where we haven't gone so far? So let's go back in and just take a look at all the picks that we've got here. Darrington Evans, Lynn Bowden, Jake Hansen, the interior offensive line, interior defensive line with Lecky Fotu, Akeem Davis-Gaither, Terrell Burgess, Ezra Cleveland, Trevon Diggs, Henry Ruggs III. We've got the running back. We've got a pair of wide receivers, interior offensive linemen, defensive linemen. Is there really any kind of other need? Maybe another tight end, do you think? Another linebacker that could play a kind of an athletic, fits that mold of raw, talented, that can kind of move around, maybe that hybrid role similar to Akeem Davis-Gaither. Is there another guy like that you think?
I think at this point we just need to focus on getting a punter. I think that's definitely a huge need, and just looking for depth on the offensive line and at basically the offense in general. I mean, tight end, we can cross that off. I think we're good at wide receiver. I think that running back, we're good. Maybe a backup quarterback that they can groom and develop. Developmental offensive tackle, and another interior offensive lineman would basically be the 2 ways on offense to go. And another position too is getting that 5 tech, that ability to go get a guy who can offer up the ability to get after the quarterback from there. But at this point, is just I don't think there's anybody really left at this point. I think with this upcoming pick, I think we should just lock it in right now. Brandon Mann out of Texas A&M, getting that punter right here. I think that he'd be long gone by this point. Brandon Mann is the best punter in this class. He's got the huge leg, which would definitely be boosted in playing in a mile high, and he can definitely pooch punt it. I think that he does need to work on not out punting his coverage units, but that is something that you can also sit there with as the Broncos is get more speed on the outside.
Yeah, that's fair. There was a comment that I kind of pulled up an edge depth. Now with Malik Reed, obviously the Broncos have expressed interest in bringing back Jeremiah. Edge depth with Justin Hollins as well. Not necessarily sure where his role fits in still. Kind of off ball. He did play a lot on the edge as well towards the end of the season, but edge depth could be a concern there as well. Eric, I kind of agree with you. I've seen a couple of comments here. Braden Mann, the punter out of Texas A&M here, and I believe that we've got one more pick number 252.
Two more.
252
and 254.
What happened there? Hold on, let's get this out of here. Sometimes
it looks like it froze up on you.
I was going to say, it looks like it froze up on me, unfortunately.
Well, guys, the last two picks are we'll just say Denver traded them.
Yeah, Denver traded out so they could go up and get Henry Ruggs III. How about that?
Now, well, just talking about this is definitely the position that I would be looking at with these last two picks would be interior offensive line, going and getting another guy who you can work on it with and develop in that area, just because, next year, Elijah Wilkinson, he's no longer a restricted free agent. He's going to be unrestricted free agent. We don't know what his asking price will be. We're seeing it more and more around the NFL that offensive linemen with versatility, with plenty of experience, as Elijah Wilkinson has, will sit there and will basically get a lot more money thrown their way. So we saw that with Billy Turner, and I could see something similar happening with Elijah Wilkinson. So we can go look at getting a developmental guard to sit there and take over next year. We can also look at a developmental tackle. I know we took Ezra Cleveland, who can offer up the versatility for both of them. But I think that after the season, if Juwan James doesn't stay healthy enough, that they definitely part ways with him. So they would be looking at a guy they can develop and be that swing tackle next year, with potentially Garrett Bowles and Ezra Cleveland being the two starting tackles. And we don't know what's going to happen with Bowles. Maybe the Broncos don't pick up his fifth-year option and decide to let him go after the next season. So that's something else that you have to consider. And then somebody else brought it up with looking at a cornerback. That's definitely an option as well. But I think with getting Trevon Diggs, getting Bryce Callahan back, Denver's looking at bringing Devontae Bosby back. I think that's going to happen at some point that the two sides agree there. Getting AJ Boye, I don't see the Broncos going another cornerback. I think at this point, they'll just be looking at getting developmental guys that they can work with outside of the draft. And, they still have Elijah Holder, which they did move to safety, but with Vic Fangio going to more defensive backs, he's a guy that can still come in and play corner as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Bawana Beast coming in, and I'm going to pull this comment just really fast because I kind of disagree with you, Bawana Beast. Malik Reed is just another guy. Another undrafted free agent could win versus him. Now, arguing semantics, yes, I don't agree that Malik Reed is probably the best run defender, but as far as a rotational pass rusher, where you're not going to ask him to set the edge, where he was definitely miscast with the Bradley Chubb injury. Now, Malik Reed, as far as a rotational pass rusher, is a very good player to have. As a starter, you're probably right. Another undrafted free agent could probably go out and take that spot. However, Malik Reed is not just another guy. I think that there's some value to having a guy like Malik Reed on this roster. Now, unfortunately, guys, I've been trying to go back and forth and get this thing to reboot, and it's not going to do it. So I'm going to go full screen here, and we're going to take a look at what we have. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to finish this out, and we are running really long. So just to wrap this up here, we have Henry Ruggs, the third wide receiver out of Alabama. Trevon Diggs, a cornerback out of Alabama. Ezra Cleveland, offensive tackle from Boise State. Terrell Burgess, a safety from Utah. Akeem Davis Gaither, the linebacker from Appalachian State. Lecky Fotu, interior defensive lineman from Utah. Jake Hansen, interior offensive lineman, potential starting center for the Broncos. Out of Oregon, Lynn Bowden, the wide receiver from Kentucky. Darrington Evans, the running back from Appalachian State. And Braden Mann, the punter out of Texas A&M. Guys, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Now, if we can get another question. Go ahead, Eric.
One second, I just wanted to say a couple things. Michael Divinity, there's some questions about his off the field. I mean, with the whole departing the team and stuff like that, there's some concerns there. And somebody asked if I like DeMarcus AC. I do, but he's a guy that I'd definitely be looking at with a undrafted free agent pick. And then what did I get from the ECCC? What's that? I'm not sure what that is. But anyways, with how this draft turned out, I know a lot of you guys are going to have some issues with it. But because I'm such a Star Wars fan, I just have to do this just once. I do it all the time at my day job, but just Misaliki. There's a lot of people like to make fun of how I look. There you go. I make fun of myself.
All right, Java. That's enough of that. John Silva coming in with another question with a question here. Read the next Shaquille Barrett. I don't know if I would go that route. I think Shaquille Barrett was a lot better as a run defender and then developed as a pass rusher and has a little bit more versatility than Malik Reed. But at the same time, you can see the kind of same trajectory there coming out of this Broncos system, developing his pass rush moves a little bit more. I could see it. Probably not a very good comparison. I kind of see the lines you're drawing there, but at the same time. Now, guys, we're going to have to get out of here. Thank you all once again for joining us on Dove Valley Deep Divers Live.
Wait. Just so you guys know, we will be back tomorrow. Same time,
we will.
Same place. It will be 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. And what we will be talking about is we just released my final offseason mock draft on milehuddle.com. That's going to be the topic of conversation. You guys can sit there and ask me all the questions you want about it. Lance is going to be doing it. You guys can go check that out. So we are back every Friday and Saturday going forward, at least until the draft, maybe longer. And stay tuned because we also have some big plans going on with the draft night as well. So, guys,
you are not going to want to miss that.
Just a quick thing too as well. Stay safe out there, guys. Make sure you're washing your hands and taking care of yourself and exercising, proper hygiene stuff. So, guys, stay safe out there. And thank you guys for watching.
Yes, absolutely. Now, guys, before we get out of here, quick matters of business. Thank you once again for watching the Dove Valley Deep Divers live podcast. You guys can follow the show at DVDD_pod. You can follow me and Eric at Sanderson MHH and Eric at Erick Trickel. Notice the CK in his name. Also, make sure you guys are following. Let's see here at Mile High Huddle for instant updates on your favorite Denver Broncos website, where we post all of our written content every single day. Follow at a Huddle Up Pod for live updates on the Huddle Up Podcast Network as well. If you guys like it, share it, hit that like button down there, share it with all your friends, get some more eyes on what we do. And last thing but not least, stay safe out there, guys. Take care. Y'all have a great night. Thanks again.